All the way in the front. Yeah, there's a few of us. Consider move.
If someone wants it, they can take it. If not, then
Welcome. Can you hear me okay? Welcome to the Oddfellow Speaker Series. I'm Ron Weiss, and I am an Oddfellow. Hey, raise your hand if you had a chance to listen to Bob Dooley from 6 to 7 and had a cup of coffee, and raise your hand. I just wanted to get a sense. It's something new that we're trying, and feel free to come early. We'll try and have something for you to eat and drink, and hopefully someone to talk to and just socialize with friends and neighbors. And so please do that. Okay, so I want to just tell you that it's great to see everybody here. I look out and I see a lot of the Half Moon Bay community. It's great to share the facility with you. I see personally so many of friends, neighbors, old students of mine, believe it or not. Hope they don't throw a tomato at me. I do want to thank Bob Dooley in particular for speaking about some amazing history here in Half Moon Bay, born and raised, and we may hear a little bit more from Bob Dooley in 2026 because he's got some very interesting stories. And I want to thank the other team of volunteers that we've had. It's been, I think, yet another huge success that we're going to have tonight, so thank you. Okay, I wanted to, before we get started here, I do want to talk about somebody very special, special Oddfellow, and I've only known him for a short time, but I think many of you know Gordon Wiltsey. And so if you know him, you already know that he's a renowned world photographer. He's also in here, he's been in the speaker series several times, always a huge hit, sells out. And he has also done a class here. He's done, it's called Photo Rendezvous. How many of you have been part of that Photo Rendezvous? He's been a mentor to a lot of amateur photographers here, and what a privilege to have someone like that in our community. But a little bit of sad news, he's moving on to his next adventure. And so I just thought we'd give him a round of applause to send him off the right way. Gordon, we have a special gift for you. You can see it up on the screen. It's a special Oddfellows gift, and it's got a caracol on it, and it's a very important symbol, actually, in the Mayan culture. And so we thought it would be something that you could always remember us with. So thank you very much. Okay, before we introduce our main speaker, I wanted to just mention a few other things about Oddfellows. And some of you already know this if you've been here. Some of you, maybe it's your first time. So in 1819, the Independent Order of the Oddfellows was established to help the sick, bury the dead, and educate the orphans. The Half Moon Bay Oddfellows chapter was established in 1868, and we became known as the Ocean View Lodge. This building that you're in right now was built in 1895, and it was built from old growth redwoods, And these redwoods came from an area that many of you have gone hiking in, the Prisma Creek Reserve. And so it's pretty amazing. Or Hatches Woods, if you've been around long enough. And now I know a lot of you have been here for films and speakers and music, but what you may not know is with your help, we've raised over $50,000 in the last few years. So thank you very much for helping us. And this money goes for local scholarships for students, mostly for high school students. So we plan to keep it going, but we really appreciate your support. Now, if you want more information about Oddfellows, you can always go to our website. But even better would be if you wanted to get on our email list. And that way, if you get on our email list, you'll know exactly what's happening each month, all the different events. And there's actually a link on these emails that you'll get that will send you right to the ticket purchase window. And so, again, I really encourage you to get on that email list. Okay, if you have any ideas for speakers or films or musical groups, feel free to seek out an Oddfellow. You'll know us by our little name badge here. So just anytime after the event, come up and talk to us, and we're very open to suggestions. Okay, and by the way, if you'd like to rent our lodge, it is available for private events. Okay. All right, a couple of quick things. We do have an exit out that door there in case of emergencies. We have the staircase as well, obviously. But if you know someone who has some issues navigating the stairs, we also have an elevator. Some people don't know about that. And please silence your cell phones. And at the end of the night, we do ask for your help to put the chairs away in that room there. And we do have a bathroom outside this door and then to the left. Okay. Okay. I'm going to pass the pass the microphone over to Gail Evanari, and she is going to introduce Jan, our main speaker.
Hello. So I could talk about Jan for an hour and not touch on one thing that she's going to mention in her talk. But she told me that if I went more than 3 minutes, she'd pull me off the stage. And I believe her. So Jan and I go back about 40 years. So I'm a new friend. Because just about everybody that I see that I've known Jan through has known her for many more years than that. But Jan has been a really important friend to me. First of all, she saved my life once. And that you never forget. And also, we traveled the South Seas together, from Easter Island to Tahiti to the Marquesas, and that you'll never forget. But also, Jan is really my moral compass. If I get into a situation where I need to make an ethical decision and I'm stuck, I call Jan, because she's no bullshit, and she's the most ethical person I know. She's also the only person I know who resigned from high school. And she probably won't talk about that in her speech tonight, but she literally got up and walked out. And I think that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard. That said, she's one of the smartest people I've ever met, and she stayed in really close touch with most of her teachers from high school. One of them, in fact, she sailed in 1972 to the Galapagos and back when she was 24 years old, with the teacher and her life partner, Joe, and her. And I think that's pretty fucking brave, if you ask me. So, but there's someone else that goes even further back than that, and that's Joan Baez, who she met in a jail cell in Oakland. And she's had many adventures with Joan, including a wild ride at, what's it called? Burning Man, yes. Which I won't talk about, but I saw the video. So Jan has held on to long friendships with her high school teachers, with her high school friends, with her childhood friends. And she's done amazingly brave things, including becoming the first woman on the bay to be licensed as a tugboat captain, and did that for 30 years off and on. And somewhere in that time, on a foggy day in Moss Beach, she went out on a windsurfer with another man, and rumor has it she came back married to Joe. We still don't know for sure, but that's the story that I've been hearing. So I think, other than being a mountaineering guide and a tugboat captain, she also took up fine art photography, and that you will see here. But I will say that Jan is many things. Most of all, she's fearless. She's incredibly competent. She is the most honest and ethical person I've ever met, and she's my friend. So, Jan.
We're good? Yeah, we're good. Thank you all for coming. It fills my heart. And I want to thank Ron and the speakers group who put these things together, because they do such a nice job. We did it half-assed for years, and they're really showing us how it's supposed to be done. So thank you. Gail told you pretty much everything. So how about just questions? Anybody? All right, well, let's do it. I started photography young. Somebody gave me a Brownie camera when I graduated from, the only thing I graduated from, which was 8th grade. And I went on to take some nice photographs in high school on a field trip out to Arizona or somewhere. I won $10 in the Chronicle photo contest. So now I had a paper, so now I'm a photographer. Also in high school, I started working in the high mountains, and in a mountaineering camp. I started as a cook, and then eventually, as they say, learned the ropes, and became a guide. Then saw really that this is pretty exciting stuff. I kept on with mountaineering, but the same person that opened up mountaineering to me, this was a teacher from high school, Bob Swift, he bought a boat. And Joe, there's Joe. You remember how what he looks like? The Oddfellows made him go to Reno for a big convention, which is why he's not here right now. So Bob bought this boat, 34-foot yawl, and we learned to sail. We sailed around the bay. We sailed the bay. Bay is fun. You can learn a lot. You can sail your whole life there and have a wonderful time. But that wasn't the way Bob did things. Bob said, I got 4 months. Coming up in March, I got 4 months. We could sail to Hawaii. We could sail up and down the coast. We could go to Mexico. He said, but why don't we go to the Galapagos Islands? I didn't know what the Galapagos Islands were. I didn't know where they were. It sounded great. Sure, why not? So we packed 4 months worth of food and everything else we needed for that voyage in that small boat and set off. Our first landfall was going to be, it was Cabo San Lucas, and as we were getting close to the port, the coast, we knew the colors of the flag generally, but we didn't know which went against the mast. And people in their countries like you to have their flag right. So I didn't slap the grommets in until we looked with binoculars, and we could see which one went against the mast. Joe, on the other hand, when we got to land, said, hey, let's stock up for a big trip. And he's got rum and more rum, and And he's got beer. Okay, anyway. The things on sailboats, you learn it's your world. It's a small world. There's no help. We didn't have a radio that could do anything. We had a navigation, we navigated by celestial navigation. And when the sails blew out, I sewed them back together. But we got to Galapagos. And because it's so far away, we had 2 whole weeks in Galapagos after taking this amazing sail down, and then sailed back. And to sail back took 51 days. We were 51 days out of the sight of land before we got back to Sausalito. But just at the Farallones, I fished out a bottle of champagne out of the bilge that I had hidden because if those 2 rats I was sailing with knew they were there, it was there, it wouldn't have been there. So we celebrated, we toasted, and what happened with that, on that sail, I realized when I got back to San Francisco Bay, I was changed. I like to say I was wrecked for work inside. I was never going to be working inside anywhere. And I just had to figure out what that meant going forward. And what it meant was being on the water. The water, I have boat sense. People have it or they don't have it. Maybe you learn it later, but I had it. And, you know, boats. Well, most people say, oh, they want to get on a boat, and they see this big ship, which that's the Jeremiah O'Brien, but no, I want to be on that tugboat. And I had to figure out a way to get on. And this is 1976. There were no women on boats. You couldn't go in the Union Hall. However, right then, just as I'm thinking, this is what I want to do, some women over at Berkeley and a law professor sued the Inland Boatmen's Union and won. And women were allowed to register in the union. And I knew I wanted a union job. If well, for one, they would let me join. So I joined the union. And I got a job on the ferry boat. This doesn't look like work, does it? My job was night maintenance for about 1.5 years. And I would do all the work, and then I'd set up my hammock and take a nap. That was okay, but really I wanted to be on the tugs. And eventually I found a way to do that. And it was like magic. It was like, I couldn't believe, here I am, look at me, I can do this. And be in the middle of the bay and be in the middle of these big things. I've always liked being beyond the barricades. And this was really beyond the barricades. We move things. Tugboats are the little engines that can. Really, it's a big, powerful engine and fuel tanks and propeller and pretty much nothing else. And part of my training was to go to sea. I went to sea as a cook, and well, they'll eat anything at sea. I also went to sea as an ordinary deckhand, an ordinary seaman, and here I'm on the back, on the stern of a tug, and we're hooking a snotter which holds the tow line down in these pins so the tow line doesn't go across the deck. If it jumps this pin and goes like that, it cuts you in half. So the job back there is really touchy. But I did that. We come back into port. First thing you do is you spiff up the boat before you go by the office. There's the office pier. here I am painting the red stack. You know, I was just a kid in a candy store. I love this. And look, I'm so clean. But again, when you have a view of things like this, you're just there. It's amazing. One of the things I realized pretty soon, you know, I did this for about 3.5 years. I was a deckhand. The pulling lines, you can do it. You can't do it forever. And the other thing that I learned was, well, you know, these guys I worked for, the guys who were driving the boats, most of them were really good. Some of them were kind of good. Others didn't give a shit. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I think I'm pretty good. I probably could be pretty good. So I better get a license. And I'm out on a mud dredge here, enjoying the bay, but taking my spare time as we come back from dumping our spoils out at Alcatraz, studying. When I got my license, it was an amazing time, because affirmative action was not a dirty word. And we as the people were saying, yeah, women want to be other than teachers or whatever the hell. Things were opening up. And that was an amazing time. I went with the ink wet on my license. I went over to the Red Stack Tugs and I said, what can I do with this? And they said, come on in, baby, and sit down. We got a job for you. And they did. They started training me that day. Up the river to Napa to the salt ponds. Excuse me. That all went along fine until I went in the office one day and said, I got to take a leave of absence. They said, well, sure. Why? Well, they don't have maternity leave because they've never had a woman working on the tugs. So that was, it was mutually agreed upon. I could have up to 2 years, have my seniority back. I wouldn't get paid, but I could get my seniority back, and that was fine. Go have your kid, which I did. The problem came when I wanted to go back to work. Now Reagan is the president, and it's the good old boys on the rise again. And it took me several years to get back, including having to go through the most scalding arbitration. Anyway, I won. I got a little back pay. I got my seniority back, and I got back on the boats. The thing that I was pretty not sure of was whether they had buried the hatchet or they were still out to get me off. So that was yet to be found out. However, I got to take Joni on the boats. And the deckhands were totally charming. She's a little short for the engine room work. But always game, and I don't know if you know, you can't really tell there. She was wearing, it was her skirt phase. Everywhere in a skirt. So here she is, climbing the ladder, wearing her skirt. And she took the photograph of Joe and me and our dog Taku on the stern of my boat. And then they went off, and I was working week on, week off, still unsure whether I'm gonna make it. The publicity helped. Some little couple of different TV gangs came down to make a little show, and I just wondered what the hell this guy, my deckhand, was saying about me. And well, I got to see what he said about me because it was on television a couple weeks later. But as the time went on, I got better at what I did, and I was still a little I was still concerned about whether a trap might be set. But as time went on, I got to relax a bit and not feel that. And now Joni's growing up, still coming on the boats. You know, it's not until it's, let's see, you're, you know, a teenager, and then your boat. I don't think so. So I gave a slideshow down at the yacht club a couple months ago, and it was a funny show because I had this thing in my head that I was going to tell my story really quickly and educate everybody about what tugboats do and what the bay is all about. And today I thought, wait a minute, that's silly. I'm going to give you an overview of the bay somewhat, sure, with some nice photographs, and then we're going to see some really pretty photographs. So tugboating, think of tugboats with ships do a lot of things. Well, the main thing they do is they help ships parallel park. When you have something that's, well, anyway, now they're 1,200 feet long, and try to park that sideways, you're moving hundreds of thousands of tons really slowly. And there's two things you know. You go really slow. If you can't go really slow, at least be flat. Be parallel to that dock, because if you land the whole thing that way, you haven't bought the dock. But you're a little bit off, you break stuff. So many things happen on the bay that most people don't know about. This is a dredging operation. Things go on 24/7. So we're dredging out brand new slips over in the Oakland estuary. And then you see crazy stuff, like this, huh? That's part of a dry dock. And a dry dock is something that will sink down to the bottom, and then a ship drives, or boats drive over it, and then it pumps the water out and raises the ship out of the water. And, they're unique craft. This is a type of a tanker with a tug that's made especially for it. And it can run without the barge, but it doesn't do real well. When I started work in the mid-70s on the bay, this is what size ships were, mostly. There were a few larger ships then, but really not. And the big container ships, there were container ships, but still this, so the whole World War II ship, but still in business. Oops. This is what they became before I retired. That is about 1,100 feet. And you can imagine this is you have to turn it in its length because there's no room on the Oakland side and there's no room on the Alameda side for it. It requires some really special handling. It makes, big ships make this small space really tight. And so the tugs that I was used to running and doing ship work with suddenly were too antiquated for that really tight maneuvering. And I got trained on tractor tugs, highly maneuverable. They can turn in their own length. They're twin drive things that are like a helicopter is to a conventional aircraft. And so here, ships coming in, I turn around, I'm actually facing the bow, driving backwards, and once I commit to this, I don't look behind. Excuse me, I cannot look behind. Excuse me. I can't look behind me. So I have to trust the ship. And just concentrate on that bow, and then I've got to get a line up on there before, if anything goes wrong, I probably get sunk. So I get a line up, and then we can actually work the ship. Oh. Thank you. Whoops. Well, there. Thanks. Yeah, I can't get rid of it. It's because of my stupid program. I'm not a PowerPoint person, so I have to use this, and it's a little bit lame. Ships move, they always have a pilot. They come in the bay, they have to have a pilot. And so that's a pilot boat delivering a pilot to sail this ship. Pilot calls me, tells me where he wants me on the ship, what I'm going to be doing, and things got more relaxed as it went on. One pilot once called, we had a very fancy, I had to, it was an unusual rig to get my tug tied alongside the ship to back it into a dry dock. Really sensitive maneuvering. And the tug has to be really secure to the ship. And at one point, after adjusting and adjusting, and the pilot is finally pretty relieved, he says, "Okay, Jan, how do you like your makeup?" And I said, "Well, you know, Ron, I think I need a little more lipstick." You know, ships come in to the greater Bay Area, but then upriver. I've gone all the way to Stockton, lots and lots of trips to Stockton, and Sacramento, and Redwood City, all the way down to Redwood City. It's a contest with gulls. How many gulls can we get on the line? Safety it's a big concern in my life. I try to be as safe as I can be. And on boats, it pays to practice all the safety things that you can. This is a line gun, and it's powered by big caliber bullets. It shoots line, like you have a ship that's at sea and it's broken down, and you have to get a line to it so you can tow it, but it's too rough to come alongside. You'll get bashed to bits. So you get this gun out, and you shoot a light but very strong line to the ship, and then they can send down a heavier line, and pretty soon you can make up and tow them. So the boss is here, and he's telling my deckhand and my engineer and me, walking us through the whole thing, and then we get out on deck, and he hands me the gun. And I'm pretty sure he thought I was going to put it on my shoulder. Because you know, that's what you do. Well, you do that if you don't know anything about guns. I've never shot this thing. I don't know. These are big caliber bullets. So I shot it from putting it on the deck. It went great. It went right across the Oakland estuary, and I almost got this boat. It was close. And then when you don't have work, there's always work. You don't have a ship to sail or a barge to push, go out and start hammering the paint off and repainting something. Splice lines. Practice prevention, fire suppression. On ships, if you have to abandon ship, the modern ships have these, this is an e-ticket ride. You get in that orange thing while it's right there. You get in, you got seats that hold you like this, and it shoots off the back. It's a big drop. They wouldn't let me go for a ride in it, but oh well. So the Gumbies. So this is also part of survival. These are survival suits. Bob knows a lot about that. I'm sure that he has his favorite suit, probably still has it, even though he sold his boat. If you have to abandon ship, and you're in a tugboat or a small boat, this is what you put on. You actually even do it in larger ships if you've got them. And so you want to practice because you don't want to be in an emergency and then be realizing you don't know how to zip the damn thing up. So I got in, and the advice I've luckily heard, well, one is I didn't jump in, but if I had, your tendency might be to dive. You always want to have your feet down, because if your feet are up and all the air goes there and you're now floating upside down, you can't get out. So, but don't jump. Accidents happen. And of course, that's why we're working to keep safe. And a lot of accidents happen in fog. Fog is probably, fog on a summer afternoon, on a weekend, was the worst thing, because people are out in their little boats. And a lot of people getting on a boat, well, first they pop the beer open, then they get on the boat, and then they go sailing. And so it makes life hard for mariners, maritime folk. But it's also difficult to understand what you're seeing. We have radar. And so I can look in the radar and see, oh, I'm looking down the estuary, and I can see that there are 3 ships alongside there, and this is in nice, clear weather at night. Wonderful. But fog plays tricks on you, and we had a tug bringing a 450 barge, fully loaded oil barge down from Carquinez, that was hit by an upbound tug and barge coming in from sea. And the guy coming in from sea was not familiar with the Bay Area, and he misread his radar and thought that what he saw was the tug that the Coast Guard traffic had been telling him was downbound with a barge. And the guy says, yep, I got him on my radar, I'm fine. No, he had a blip from a power line that went over the Carquinez Straits, and he thought that was the tug. And in not too very long, he actually slammed into our boat, not my boat, but boat I had driven. Luckily, the captain of that boat had seen it. He thought it was coming their way. He got his crew onto the barge. When the tug hit his tug, rolled him over, it sank, he died, and they didn't get him out of there for a long time. This is us arriving to take charge of the barge that was now just floating on its own. So a helicopter couldn't find him, and they had to send divers. When you're working round the clock, you see amazing sights, beautiful colors, incredible dawns. Nighttime's wonderful. One, it's quiet, much less traffic, if any traffic. It's commercial traffic, and you pretty much know what's going to happen. This is an oil tanker alongside. Ships come to docks, they discharge cargo, they exchange their containers. But But they need things, they need supplies. So supplies come alongside. Here we're bringing a oil barge. So a lot of ships will order those things. And so I moved a lot of oil barges. And I love the crews. My crew, I just love these guys. They're funny, they were sweet, we really clicked. In the mid-'80s, the Enterprise aircraft carrier ran aground in San Francisco Bay. You may remember that. And it was stuck there for a number of days. It was really embarrassing. And we had to take it over to dry dock because it had actually had some problems with the hull after being in the mud for a while. I used to I had a job every year when it was Fleet Week they'd put they'd anchor an aircraft carrier out by Alcatraz, and then they'd have all the brass and folks come out, and they'd set up grandstands up on the carrier and to watch the air show. Well, that's fine, except the tide changes, and then the ship swings around, and now everybody's looking at Richmond. So instead of that, I love this job. Just give me an old tin boat and go out there and put a line up on the aircraft carrier and keep them from swinging. So I got to see a lot of air shows that way. Cruise ships are white, mostly, and they pride themselves in their whiteness, and you better keep them white. And so if you're going to deal with a cruise ship, one is they would rather you not even touch them. And I've had a lot of jobs where I just was there and there and there, and I never put a line up. But if you put a line up, it's all hands on deck. For one, you're on a ladder. Some guy, my deckhand's on a ladder. The engineer and the other deckhand are keeping it steady. But you notice around the bow of the tug down there, it's a canvas. You put it out there so you're not making marks on the side of their nice white ship. But eventually they have to go in, and they go into dry dock and have work done. And these are little floating dry docks. It gives you an idea of, here's a conventional tug, these great big propellers, or 7,000 horsepower or something like that. And then the little tractor tugs are much shorter, much rounder, much more maneuverable, and they work in any direction because of these azopod things that will spin 360. You get two of them, and with them you can make that thing dance. They're astounding, these vessels. Oops. A lot of power. And again, they're working at night, containers in, containers out, until the dawn. And off they go. The Loma Prieta earthquake broke the Bay Bridge, and it broke exactly where it should break. There was a flex link there where if it hadn't been there, it could have taken the whole bridge down, like the Baltimore Bridge. When it went down, the whole damn thing went down. This is a transition from where the bridge is actually anchored in bedrock, and then the next part is in prehistoric mud. So understanding that, when they designed the bridge, they built it so that at this point, that's where it's going to break. My job was to take the derrick barges, crane out, take the pieces off, bring them back so that Caltrans could start the construction on shore for the replacement parts. And we made the Chronicle. And then, a few years later, it was time to celebrate its birthday. There were a lot of celebrations on the bay, and incredible fireworks. One of the most amazing fireworks I've ever seen was to celebrate the Golden Gate Bridge's 75th anniversary. And the bridge is still standing. Containers have gotten, the containers are the same size. They all started out to be 20-foot containers. Now some are up to 40 and 50 foot, but the ships have gotten so much bigger, the cranes had to get taller and longer armed, and so there's a batch coming in from China, and the ship is made just to carry them. It has a computerized ballast system, otherwise it would just roll over. With all that weight up there, it's so top heavy. If they lose power, they're in real trouble. I'm watching it heading for the Golden Gate made me very queasy. Coming under the Golden Gate Bridge wasn't a problem. They could clear it, it's 250 foot or something, but heading for the Bay Bridge, they had to ballast down till their decks were awash to make it under the bridge. It was a calm day, and it was low tide. And there are various crazy little craft you see. The raccoon picks up stuff out of the bay, so like old pier parts and barrels and animals and stuff. The Coast Guard is always maintaining their buoys. They have to change their lights. Every time they pull one out, they do their maintenance, they put it back down. It is never in the same spot. It's not the exact spot. So the Notice to Mariners will tell, it comes out every week, you have to correct your charts so that that buoy now has moved 5 feet, but you have to have it precisely there. Because if you get inspected and your charts are off, I think you go to sailor hell. Anyway, there's a bunch of little weird boats. It's a working harbor. And yet, here's the big boat series happening in the bay. These super boats racing like hell, coming down on us, and they miss us by feet. Ernie knows all about this. This is a herring fisherman. The autumn, it used to be the autumn, way the bay was in the autumn. And then, of course, Santa Claus has to come. And I don't know what this is. Your guess is as good as mine. We know these boats, shells, they're racing shells, and not so racing. I had one of the best jobs I ever had was to escort a balloon race across the bay. There wasn't much wind. There were like 7 of us, 7 boats, 7 balloons. My balloon actually got off Crissy Field. Several balloons went over into San Francisco, and I don't know whatever happened to them. We were racing, I think, to Richmond, and mine was the only one that made it out in the mid-bay, and another tug tried to come and steal my balloon. But I didn't let it. For a number of years, 7 years, I was lead skipper over at the Potomac, which was a fantastic job. Presidential yacht, it was FDR's floating White House. I loved it because people who had who were alive when Roosevelt was president were so enamored of him. I mean, I had people coming up into my wheelhouse in tears that they were on his vessel. I'm going to give you a little bit of a, this is another kind of dry dock. Crazy things come up. This is Paul Allen's yellow submarine. And you can see the little portholes along the side for whoever's on board to look out. And then the driver is up there in that thing. That's his foot. It's a stocking foot there in the window. That's where you drive. And the amazing thing was one day my boat, the Melbourne, Royal Melbourne there, and next door was my sister's boat, the Princess of Wales from Sanctuary Cruises down in Moss Landing. Her boat she owned. And here's where the art started, staring at ships, staring at hulls. Sometimes you're there for 5 minutes, sometimes you might be there for hours. If the tides are wrong, if something's screwed up, and this is what you're looking at. So make something of that, and that's where it started. So I'm going to play a little music in a minute. 5 minutes sometimes. And real photographers like Gordon, when they do a slideshow like this and they want to show you a number of images, they choreograph them to music. And I don't know how to do that, so I'm going to show you some things, and then real photography. And the music part, like Gordon, I thought, well, a sea shanty, how on the nose is that? Well, too on the nose. But in this day and age, I have to do one little quick thing, sorry. This is embarrassing because I didn't do it. Okay, and then I'm going to hide that. I'm going to come back to, now I have to find the show. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Now I have to find the show. Sorry. Okay. Oh, bummer. Are we? Okay. I'm not getting it. Yeah, no, it's on. What is, I don't know what that noise is. I could play something that's topical, inspiring, completely divorced from the maritime stuff. You can just listen, you can watch, you can think about where we are today as our democracy is being ripped apart. figure out what you're going to do about it. Come on. It was playing, now it's not playing. I'm so sorry. Give me 2 minutes, 1 more minute. Okay, you keep practicing that, Patience. How's it holding up? Just don't look for a minute. Close your eyes. Speak, talk among yourselves. Okay, here we are.
Or amber waves of rain, or purple.
If there are any questions.
Prehistoric mud.
Prehistoric mud is mud that's formed a long time ago, and it's just there. The bay was a big lake a long time ago. So you can't drill through it to get to base rock. So you have to make accommodations for that. And I have to apologize to everybody for stealing somebody's music and not getting permission for it. We all do that, don't we? But usually the person that made the music isn't in the audience. Enough of that later. Anybody else?
Thank you. The picture, the art photos are great. The boat you went to the Galapagos on, was it plywood?
Yes, hard chine.
Who designed it?
I do, but I can't remember at the
Okay.
moment.
It's a Bay Area boat?
Yes, built in Alameda, it was a one-off.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was glass over plywood.
What is something that happened to you that was very dangerous, or
Everything.
you got you got out of it somehow?
Well, here's the funny thing is, when I started working on tugs, one, I knew I had what I think of as boat sense. But the other thing is, nothing on tugs was ever as dangerous as everything I did on that sail to Galapagos. You know, there were just 3 of us. We had no communication. We had no lifeboat. we were in storms. We, you know. We didn't feel that way. About the Galapagos trip. The adventure of that, of course, I hadn't ever done a big ocean voyage before. Neither had Joe. Bob had sailed he'd sailed out to Hawaii on a friend's boat, so he had a little bit of that. One of the most amazing things, well, one, passing San Diego and being out in the ocean with aircraft carriers launching and landing aircraft while we're this little boat at night with one little light up there. Please don't hit us. That was something. But being in the middle of the ocean at night and seeing something, a line out there. What is that line? And then as you get closer, you realize a whale has gone by, and the photobio essence is lit up. And then it goes under, and then you see it under your boat. You don't see the animals that are doing it. But that's fantastic. But in the Galapagos, we had a whale coming right to our beam, coming right at us, and submerged, went under us, came up the other side. Well, you could smell fish breath when that whale came up. And because we only had 4 months, and as I said, it took 51 days to get back. So we didn't have much time there. We had 2 weeks. And so we sailed around to whatever islands we could get to. However, we had ordered 50 gallons of gasoline, a drum to be shipped out from Ecuador. I think it made a round trip, because it wasn't on the islands when we got there. And the guys that lived there went around and got little bits of gas for us, so we could, because the currents are so strong that you sail towards that island in the day when there's a little bit of wind, the wind stops, and now you're back here again. And then next time, you know, it was like that. But being able to, the Galapagos were not, had just been declared a World Heritage Site, which is good. We had free range. We could land anywhere, walk anywhere, see anything, crawl around on our bellies and see iguanas, and it was fantastic.
I have a friend from college that is working on tugboats right now.
Good.
And she wanted to be here tonight, but she could not. But she is live streaming this event, and she wanted me to ask you this question. And she wants to know, how did you deal with the naysayers? Because there must have been some naysayers having women captain.
Oh yeah. No, there were a lot. You know, so the question was, actually this is from the live stream. This is amazing technology. How did I deal with naysayers about having a female captain? And you know, for quite a while, guys test you. They're gonna not do whatever. You know, they're gonna mess around. And my way of dealing with it was, come on up to the wheelhouse. We're going to have a little chat. I have a job. You have a job. I do mine, you do yours. You don't do yours, it's going to get serious. And that went away. You know, guys got it. The thing that I really, really loved was when it didn't happen anymore. And it didn't happen because I had a reputation. I wasn't going to put up with it. And it just stopped. So that was great. One more.
Since you did a lot of the classical navigational skills, and now that NOAA is no longer going to be publishing paper charts, and most mariners that I know rely just on electronic navigation, do you have an opinion about that, Jan?
God help them. You know, as long as technology works, and you can see we're a little bit in the middle of technology problems, but Noah will come back. It'll turn around. We're going to fight for it. Come on, you guys, let's head to the barricades. Thank you. Oops, nope. There.
Thank you for coming. I wanted to just say a word about our next speaker in June. We have Carolyn Tilley coming in June, June 19th. She's actually a very eclectic, interesting character, a food writer who specializes in food with artists, the occult, and a very well-known speaker. She's spoken to dignitaries in Washington, D.C. She lives on the coast side, and we are very lucky to get her in June. So I'm looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you for coming. Oh, and the chairs. Please bring your chairs.
Megan or Megan Wamura.